Hey, what's up, Gomez gang? Today we're going to talk about page 23 in your Unit 2 Scholar Work Packet. Now, this is for academic year 2019 to 2020, so if you are in a different year, it might be a slightly different page. On this problem, we see a problem that says y plus 0.2y is equal to x. And of course, if I wanted to simplify this a little bit, I know that there's one y in this situation right here. And if I'm adding 0.2y, that would be the equivalent of 1.2y if I want to simplify that. Of course, that 1 would represent the 100% of y, and the 2.2, would represent 20% of y. So this would be equivalent to that. However, for the sake of this problem, I am going to continue using the original. Now, when I solved this problem, I had Mr. Rob on my side, and Mr. Rob was telling me, hey, Mr. Gomez, I have y, that's fantastic, but what if we had x? If I had x, I can just take away 20% of x in order to get to my y. I said, wait a second, Mr. Rob. If I have y and I'm adding 20% of y, I'm not sure if that would be the same thing as taking away 20% of x. I'm not sure if y and x are the same thing. I can't just assume that. So in order to convince him, I tried to throw some numbers at him. In which case, I used a number that's pretty easy to me. I used y is equal to 100. And when y was equal to 100, I just substituted anywhere I saw y with, of course, that 100. So I would have 100 plus 20% of y. 20% of y should be pretty straightforward. 20% of 100 is 20. However, if you want to interpret that 20% as just finding 1/5 or dividing by 5, you can do that as well if that's more comfortable for you. So 20% of 100 is equal to 20. So 100 plus 20 will get me to 120. We now know that x is equal to 120 in this context. When I tried it with Mr. Rob's strategy, we saw something a little bit interesting. If we started off at x, and we subtracted 20% of x to get to y, again, we substituted those same values that we had on the other side of the board. X would be equal to 120, and we are subtracting 20% of 120 to get back to my y. 20% of 120, as I mentioned, is the same thing as finding 1/5 of 120. We know that 120 divided by 5 will get me to 24. When I do 120 subtracting 24, I get to 96. And as we already know, 96 is not equal to 100. The reason why this mistake or this misconception occurs is because we are assuming that the 20% of y is equivalent to the 20% of x. That is not the case. As you can see in this situation, y was 100, x is 120, and when we solved, they would not get me the same answer. Because they are changing wholes, the percentages associated with those wholes are not